the American Broadcasting Company, ABC.
He and 60-some others still held hostage and threatened in a country gone out of control. The pictures exclusive, as are so many more in this broadcast.
This is an ABC News special. The Iran crisis. America held hostage. From Washington, correspondent Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. The special report that we planned to bring you tonight was about domestic politics, the battle among the Democrats.
Day 142 of the Iran hostage crisis. And the Shah's arrival in Egypt complicates efforts to free the hostages. We'll talk about that tonight with the top Iranian diplomat in this country and with the wife of one of the hostages. Tomorrow, it's the New York and Connecticut primaries, very likely make it or break it time for Edward Kennedy.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. This is a new broadcast in the sense that it is permanent and will continue after the Iran crisis is over. There will also be nights when Iran is not the major story, when we'll bring you briefly up to date on Iran, but we'll focus on some other story. That's not the case tonight. Again, today, Iran is the major story, and for the first time on television, we'll provide the opportunity for the wife of an American hostage to speak live with an Iranian official.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. This coming Sunday, a new television network opens for business. CNN, Cable News Network. John Lennon murdered in New York. We'll have a report. There is growing concern in Washington over the possibility of Soviet military intervention in Poland. We'll focus tonight on the Polish situation and on the options open to the United States and its allies, and we'll talk via satellite with a Soviet radio commentator in Moscow. And on day 401 of the hostage crisis, the Speaker of Iran's parliament says the U.S. has come closer to meeting Iran's demands.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. The focus of our broadcast tonight was and remains the situation in Poland. But late this evening, one of the world's great entertainers and musicians, John Lennon of the Beatles, was shot outside his New York home. John Paul II, the Pope who traveled the world, shot and seriously wounded inside Vatican City itself. Tonight, a special expanded edition of Nightline. We'll have the latest on the Pope's condition. We'll examine the background of the man accused of shooting him, and we'll have reports on reaction in this country and throughout the world.
This is an expanded edition of ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. Someone tried to kill the Pope today and came dangerously close.
I should like them to write on my tomb, he has lived for peace and he has died for principles.
Anwar Sadat, peacemaker of Egypt, killed in a military assassination. Have a commentary from ABC's David Brinkley and a remembrance of Anwar Sadat from Barbara Walters.
This is an expanded edition of ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. Perhaps we shouldn't be shocked by this sort of thing anymore. Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. What will the U.S. government do next in dealing with that Soviet attack on a Korean airliner? Our main focus tonight, the options available to President Reagan in reacting to the airliner incident. And a chance for you to express your opinion on whether the United States should take strong action against the Soviet Union. Also tonight, the impact of the incident in Europe. How will the peace movement respond? We'll talk with one of that movement's leaders in Britain.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
We're going to be running another one of our telephone surveys tonight, and in just a couple of minutes you'll have the opportunity to begin stating your opinion to the question, in your opinion, should the administration take strong action against the... We'll explore those issues tonight.
Live from the campus of the University of Washington in Seattle, this is ABC News Viewpoint. Tonight, how wars are reported by the news media and the controversy over war coverage by television news. Joining us in tonight's broadcast, Peter Jennings, ABC News Chief Foreign Correspondent. Peter Arnett, Pulitzer Prize-winning war correspondent, now with the Cable News Network. James Hoagland, Assistant Managing Editor of the Washington Post. Nathan Perlmutter, National Director of the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. Ben Wattenberg, syndicated columnist and co-editor of the magazine Public Opinion. And Philip Knightley, author of The First Casualty, a study of war correspondence. Now, reporting from Hub Auditorium at the University of Washington campus in Seattle, Ted Koppel.
Good evening.
Nightline and One-on-One will not be seen tonight, so that we may bring you the following special edition of Viewpoint.
Do you see these questions about the Carter briefing book as important, really important?
What you think about the ethics? Your press spokesman has said...
Questions concerning how the media covers the news.
Live from Philadelphia, this is ABC News Viewpoint, a forum to examine critical issues of a free press in a free society. Tonight's topics: has the story of Jimmy Carter's campaign documents been handled responsibly by the media? Do news organizations cover medical stories too dramatically, sometimes creating false hopes and false fears? We'll also look at whether journalists should be paid for giving speeches, whether reporters should be permitted to secretly tape phone conversations, and whether profanity should be broadcast if it's part of a valid news story. Now reporting from ABC affiliate WPVI in Philadelphia, here is Ted Koppel.
Good evening.
This is an ABC News special edition of Viewpoint. Here now reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
There is, and you probably need it about now, there is some good news. Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is a special edition of Nightline. As you may have heard by now, Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, has been shot and very gravely wounded. The incident only happened within the last few hours, and because of the importance of the event and its implications, we will spend the next half hour. Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. Hello. But has it? Could it all have been a terrible mistake? That's our focus tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Possibly, probably, when you first heard a couple of years or more ago that Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Remember the opening sequence of the television series Mission Impossible? It had its variations, but one part of the sequence was always the same. Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline.
Государство Константина Устиновича Черненко.
This time, the Soviets seem to have opted for a long-term change. The man who took charge within hours of Konstantin Chernenko's death represents a new generation. But what else does he represent? And what, if anything, should we expect of those U.S.-Soviet arms talks, which get underway, as scheduled, tomorrow morning? We'll talk live with Henry Kissinger, with former British Minister of Defense Dennis Healey, and with a former high-ranking Soviet diplomat, Arkady Shevchenko.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
The transitional period, it would seem, is over. And why?
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
When a similar accident happened in Great Britain, and you'll be hearing more about that in a few minutes, British authorities.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
There was a time 30 to 40 years ago when it was quite common for the American driver, especially seeing, and for the most part, went home again. But will they stay? That's our story tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Take a look at a couple of these live shots now of what's going on the Berlin Wall. There. Good evening. I'm Ted Koppel in Minneapolis, and this is Viewpoint.
1, 2, 3, 4. ABC is promoting war.
ABC, we know it's true. You're another Reagan student.
World War III.
What has infuriated so many Americans and others about America? Among our critics, Ted Turner of the Turner Broadcasting System. Former ambassador to the United Nations, Jeane Kirkpatrick. Representing the UN, which has had its own objections to America, attorney Ted Sorensen. Joining us from Moscow, the spokesman of the Soviet Foreign Ministry, Gennady Gerasimov. And with me here in Minneapolis, the president of the ABC Entertainment Division, Brandon Stoddard, and the writer, director, producer of America, Donald Rye.
From Minneapolis, this is ABC News Viewpoint. Reporting live from Northrop Memorial Auditorium at the University of Minnesota, Ted Koppel.
Someday, perhaps someday soon, someone will be writing sociology papers about the phenomenon of America with a K. Tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
It's something along the lines of a love-hate relationship.
Every day.
We'll hear their stories tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from New York, Chris Wallace.
Imagine for just a moment that you were in a terrible plane crash and were lucky enough to survive.
So the hammer and sickle is lowered for the last time, and an era comes to an end.
I am ceasing my activities in the post of President of the USSR.
The tricolor banner of the Russian Republic now flies over the Kremlin. And from the White House, President Bush salutes the man who presided over the end of the Soviet Union.
His legacy guarantees him an honored place in history and provides a solid basis for the United States to work in equally constructive ways with his successors.
And tonight, Ted Koppel reports from Moscow about his extraordinary, behind-the-scenes look at Mikhail Gorbachev's final hours in office.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Mikhail Gorbachev said it best today, just moments before he resigned his post as the last president of the Soviet Union.
April 22nd, 1994.
He was, at one and the same time, one of the most admired and one of the most reviled presidents in our history.
Just think how much you're going to be missing. You don't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
The Chinese people are a great people. The American people are a great people.
As we meet here today, we stand on the threshold of a new era of peace in the world.
People have got to know
whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. Always remember, others may hate you, but those who hate you don't win unless you hate them.
Tonight, Richard Nixon is dead.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Richard Nixon. The name itself is sort of a litmus test. If you're under 30, the name provokes only vague memories of Watergate and perhaps that sad two-armed victory salute from...
It's just stunning. Tonight, aftershocks, living in the wake of the Kobe earthquake.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
They are routine in Alaska. Tonight, farewell to a princess.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from London, Ted Koppel.
You could have wandered through the streets of London today and imagined...
July 22nd, 1994.
O.J. Simpson, the story that won't go away.
Developments in the O.J. Simpson murder case. Details.
Once again, the big story today is the O.J. Simpson case.
For the past month, it has dominated the media.
The State versus O.J. Simpson.
He looked crazy, like a madman gone mad.
Tainting testimony and threatening to throw the case off course.
Judge Mills has disbanded the Los Angeles grand jury.
All of it raising the question, are the media undermining the right to a fair trial?
From ABC News, this is a Nightline Viewpoint. The media and O.J. Simpson. Now reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
I'd like you to take a look at the cover of the latest New Yorker magazine.
September 16th, 1997.
They wanted to create an ideal race, free from mental illness and antisocial behavior.
They tried to purify society, to get away everything that was ugly, unclean, sick, problematic.
Teenagers were sterilized because of their problems in their school or because of their rebellion behavior.
Tens of thousands of forced sterilizations were carried out in Sweden in the name of building a better society.
Could you imagine the amount of anger, sorrow, and trauma which has been hidden in this society?
Tonight, the secret shame, the dark side of the social welfare state.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
In a frightening, if memorable, Supreme Court ruling 70 years ago.
April 1st, 1998.
In Arkansas, the judge hands down her decision. Case dismissed. The president's lawyer was low-key.
And I'm very pleased, and the opinion speaks for itself.
The president's spokesman was restrained.
The president shared the news with the First Lady after he got it from Mr. Bennett, and I think both of them were pleased to get the news.
As for the Paula Jones team,
I'm shocked. I'd be less than honest if I didn't tell you I was completely blown away by this decision.
And Monica Lewinsky's lawyer was, well, Monica Lewinsky's lawyer.
I think the bottom line on it is that we're still in jeopardy and the matter is hardly resolved.
Which would appear to put all the focus now on Kenneth Starr's investigation. Tonight.
From ABC News, This is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
In a nation largely predisposed not to care very much about the...
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
It is in the nature of war and the role of the military that troops are frequently put by their officers into...
September 17th, 2001.
Good morning and welcome back to the greatest market on the face of the earth.
Today, Wall Street and Main Street return to work.
I want to be doing something. I can't sit here and think about it anymore.
We're Americans. We're going to get back to work.
Defiant.
This is the United States of America, guys. We're not going to blow away.
People don't, go about their business, then everybody else, the terrorists are going to win.
But nervous.
Company name, please.
The first thing that comes to my mind is that I just want to make it in and out.
There's army people everywhere and police everywhere. It just doesn't feel like the New York that I know. I don't know when it ever will again.
What a difference 1 week has made.
It's not what we're normally looking at in the morning. You're normally looking at two towers.
Tonight, getting back to business. America fights back.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Chris Bury.
For many Americans, this was the day the country got back on its feet.
Tonight, guarding the home front as America fights back.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
This war is not going to be done with quickly. It is not going to be won easily, and there will be some form of retaliation here on the home front.
It was a marvel of engineering and architecture, and all the energy of so many people, men and women, who had designed, who had built with tools these giant assembly, these two arms pointing at the sky.
We're traveling in an Otis elevator at a speed of 20 miles per hour.
The jaw would start to drop as it got to 80, 85. It was that scary smile. 100, 105, and it finally stopped. It would like...
The people that cleaned it were mostly illegal aliens, people from Mexico and Central America. And a lot of the music, a lot of the sounds that this building had at nighttime came from these people.
But one man knew the World Trade Center as nobody else could.
I didn't dare to look down, 1,350 feet of nothing. And at some point, I decided to sit down in the middle of the wire, and I laid down.
Tonight, the Twin Towers, a celebration.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Manhattan Island is made up of this extraordinarily strong and deep bedrock.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Chris Bury.
It may take a war to...
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Chris Bury.
Perhaps it is fitting that the latest symbol of American anxiety...
The myth is that he was Sir Galahad wielding the magical sword and slaying all our enemies. The reality was he was willing to negotiate, and that takes a lot of courage.
For some, he was the warrior who sought peace.
His goals were to end the Cold War, and to do so without a nuclear holocaust.
To others, he was the man who ignored the plague of AIDS.
The leader of the free world completely ignored my friends and the people I loved when they were dying.
He built up the military and the deficit.
There was a high cost of what was a very serious fiscal policy mistake.
Yet the man who said government was the problem may be remembered for providing a solution.
Ronald Reagan improved the image of government because he himself seemed to be such an effective president and leader.
Tonight, farewell to a president by his admirers and his critics.
From ABC News. This is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
There it is, President Reagan's flag-draped coffin lying in state in the Capitol Rotunda. Returns to Nightline, this time as a free man. Tonight, crime and punishment, time served.
From ABC News. This is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
For most of his life, Wilbert Rideau has been scrupulous about the truth. November 22nd, 2005. I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. Tonight, remembering an old friend.
Maybe the distance between life and death isn't as great as you think.
Maury has now kept me in his class as his eternal graduate student.
Talk about it.
I mean, we're not all going to die the same way.
Accept it.
I was so taken with Maury's attitude towards life.
And go for it. Be involved.
His spirit, his refusal to complain about things.
Keep an open heart and open it up further and further and further.
I mean, what can this old guy tell me?
Love each other or die.
Tonight, a Tuesday with Maury. It was sometime in the late winter of 1995 that Richard Harris, a longtime senior producer on this broadcast.
Tonight on Nightline, Behind Enemy Lines, an exclusive interview with the U.S. ambassador to Iraq about secret talks with insurgents. We're live from Baghdad. True confessions. Should the Catholic Church be screening out gay priests? The fierce debate live. And silent victories. Why do these kids keep winning when not one of them can hear the crowd cheering?
From the global resources of ABC News, with Terry Moran in Baghdad, Iraq, and Martin Bashir and Cynthia McFadden in Times Square, New York, this is Nightline, November 28, 2005.
Good evening, I'm Cynthia McFadden. Tonight begins, in a sense, a new broadcast. The world's most ruthless dictators went from the pinnacle of power to the hangman's noose.
From the global resources of ABC News, with Terry Moran in Washington, Martin Bashir and Cynthia McFadden in New York City, this is Nightline, December 29, 2006.
Good evening, I'm Cynthia McFadden. We begin with the latest on the death of Saddam Hussein.
This is Nightline, April 16th, 2007.
Good evening, I'm Terry Moran reporting from Blacksburg, Virginia, and this is... Tonight on Nightline, leaky secrets. It's the biggest leak in U.S. military history. 92,000 classified reports on the war in Afghanistan posted on the internet for all to see. And stepping up, he's a star in limbo, inhabiting the gray area between tween heartthrob and full-on sex symbol. Tonight we go on the town with Zac Efron as he attempts to navigate Hollywood's sometimes treacherous waters.
From the global resources of ABC News, with Martin Bashir and Cynthia McFadden in New York City, and Terry Moran in Washington. This is Nightline, July 26, 2010.
Good evening, I'm Terry Moran. It's the biggest leak in U.S. military history. 92,000 classified documents published.
From New York
City. This is Nightline with Terry Moran.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. So, could you really eat your favorite fattening foods?
This is Nightline.
Tonight, air rage caught on camera. The story behind the mile-high meltdown that ended in an emergency landing. What made this passenger lose it, why this is happening more than ever nowadays, and the telltale signs that make flight attendants extra vigilant. Plus, no rope, no safety equipment, and no turning back. Meet the extreme mountain climber.
I choose my risks carefully.
Who's built a career by defying death.
It's a little bit of a thank God moment, right?
Well, a little bit.
And Big Money Bromance. They're back and more profitable than ever.
Hot plate. Beanbag chair. Hilarious shirt that signals we drink alcohol.
What is it about the supremely sophomoric humor of 22 Jump Street
Spring break, mother.
that is setting box office records this summer?
A grenade.
You never know.
Oh, why are you going to put it there?
Feels right.
But first, the Nightline 5. Good evening. The long security lines, the delays, the fees, the lack of legroom. It is perhaps not surprising that incidents of air rage.
This is a special edition of Nightline.
Tonight, shot down. The fiery moment of impact caught on tape. 298 people on board a Malaysia Airlines flight when it was violently blown from the sky, apparently by a missile, one of the deadliest air disasters ever.
Shot down, not an accident. Blown out of the sky.
Who did it and why? Plus, we go inside the investigation. What the 10-mile debris field can tell authorities about how the plane came crashing down. And breaking point. As we go on air, Israel launching a ground operation into Gaza. We heard 2 very large blasts. Our team is on the scene.
This special edition of Nightline will be right back. This is Nightline.
Tonight, the pink wave.
No KKK, no fascist USA.
Women nationwide on the march. Some may be heading all the way to Washington.
I'm incredibly invested in the future of this country.
This former Navy pilot and mother of 4, part of an unprecedented swell of women running for office in 2018. But is this barrier-breaking movement alienating some conservatives?
There's a real feeling that they're not welcome at these marches.
Plus, Born to be Wild, why are these horses being chased here? The Nightline 5. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The government may be back in business tonight, but while Washington was struggling to strike a deal over the weekend, hundreds of thousands of women took to the streets.
This special edition of Nightline, Mystery Diagnosis, Children Under Attack, continues. Here now, Juju Chang.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, you're about to meet families willing to share raw, often disturbing home videos of their children in full-blown crisis.
This is Nightline.
Tonight, they are the first responders and our best line of defense. Facing down the pandemic, training for those calls to come. Shortages of staff, shortages of supplies.
Stockings, gowns, all these things are disappearing from hospitals.
Their battles, their stories, their sacrifice.
Nurses don't go the other way. They go into the disaster.
Their dire warnings as our nation prepares for what's to come. Plus, Dr. Richard Besser, eyewitness to Ebola, leading America out of the last pandemic. Now, back tonight to answer your questions.
This special edition of Nightline, Inside the Front Lines. We'll be right back.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we take you to the front lines as our nation wages war against a deadly pathogen. First,
At ABC News, we have a singular mission: to report to you what is happening in the world, completely, accurately, in a timely and unbiased fashion. And because more Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source, we take that mission very seriously. You can see it in our faces. ABC News, we're America's choice.